Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar for thermal imagery cameras. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes and then we'll start shortly, and John will start the presentation. Thank you.
I think we'll make a start.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, good afternoon everybody. So I'm here to talk to you today about thermal imaging and where we can use it in pest control. And I have used them many times before in previous jobs in pest control. So I have a bit of experience with them. I know the sort of pitfalls and where they can be used, and sort of where they become very, very useful. So I will try and share some of my insight into where they can be utilized. Okay, so we're going to have a look at what is thermal imaging, how does it work, what types of situations they can be used in, some of the limitations with them, because people have this idea that they're X-ray machines, and any questions at the end. So thermal imaging, it's infrared thermography, thermal videoing or thermal imaging. It's a process where the camera captures and creates an image of an object by using infrared radiation emitted from an object. So thermographic cameras usually detect radiation in the long infrared range of the electromagnetic spectrum, roughly in this area here that you can see. It says infrared. I'm trying to point at it. Let me get my laser. There we go. So yeah, this area here. So it will detect any heat that's been emitted by an object or organism. So it becomes very useful when we're carrying out pest control. Since the infrared radiation is emitted by all objects with a temperature above absolute zero, according to blackbody radiation law, thermography makes it possible to see one's environment without visible illumination. And I found that out last night when I went under a bridge that was pitch black with a whole load of pigeons in it. And I'll show you that. So the amount of radiation emitted by an object increases with temperature. So therefore, thermography allows us to see variations in temperature, which is useful when we're carrying out inspections of a premises or external, especially if you have things, warm-blooded mammals, such as rodents or birds within an area. It can be, they can detect them very easily. So knowing where they'll be secreted or situated also helps. So you've got to use a bit of your pest knowledge as well to try and ascertain where they could be harbouring. So you can see here, this is a rat that was captured running along a wall edge at the side of the M8 motorway in Glasgow. That was just after Christmas. It was absolutely freezing outside, and it stood out like an absolute sore thumb. It just glowed. It looked as if it had been eating ready bread. That's what it looked like. So at night they become really visible, especially when the surrounding temperature really drops. So where are they now? So they're very good for locating harbourages, routes of movement, and proofing defects. Also water ingress as well. Trying to get this video to play. Why don't I want to play? Here we go. So you can see here, this is Norway rat, so brown rat that's climbing up a fence, and this is at the side of the motorway where I took that last picture. You can see cars whizzing by, over the top of the sort of flyover, and it secreted itself underneath the actual road and a concrete ramp that comes off the side of the motorway. Now, to the untrained eye, it was quite difficult to actually see where that gap was, where it was secreting itself underneath the bridge. But the use of the thermal imaging camera actually showed where they were hiding. So there was a large number of rats actually in this area. It's very conducive for rat activity, and I've got a bit more images later on that will show you why it was so conducive. This was a chicken farm that I went to in Scotland, and this picture, it's not a very nice sight, the one on the right, but we took 1,000 mice out of one chicken shed in one day. The use of the thermal imaging camera was helpful. It helped us to ascertain the population numbers. All of these sort of dots that you can see around here on the left hand side, these are mice that are buried into the sort of deep litter, and we also detected them in various other areas within that. It helped us to actually place glue boards down to try and mop up the population there because it was so high. They were quickly dispatched on the boards humanely and then taken for disposal. Obviously, if it's a chicken farm, then you've got a real threat in terms of biosecurity, especially if they're going from outside and in, where they could potentially transmit disease to the flock, things like salmonella. So they have to be controlled very quickly and humanely. This was the same chicken farm, and this is actually the edge of a door, and there was a small hole under there, probably about 2 to 3 centimeters wide, and what they were doing was running along the floor wall edge, gaining access into the actual door itself and harbouring in there. Now, to the naked eye, you would never know that the hole was there. You'd have to physically put your hand under the door and feel about for a small ingress point. And these mice, they were just secreted in there. I actually took 10 mice out of that actual door by putting a glue board right at the side of it. So the actual thermal imaging camera helped me to determine where to put my control. So it was very useful. This is this area again down at the side of the motorway, taken late at night, and what you can see here is this is the flyover and the concrete plinth. The area in which the rat was secreting itself was up here, and it was able to climb this fence quite easily. Now, the people that own this building, let's say they're not very good with their IPM in terms of housekeeping or stacking. There was lots of rubbish lying around about, lots of food waste, plenty of harbourage, and also vehicles as well. And one of the rats did actually run along the wall here and disappear up into the engine compartment of one of these vans. It's probably chewed the loom, or it's got in there to harbour because it's nice and warm in there. So you can see here the rat, after it decided to harbour up in that kind of area underneath the bridge, decided to come out and venture for something to eat. So we can see it's jumping onto the top of that concrete plinth that you can see in the middle picture. Those of you that are on LinkedIn will have seen this as well. It then shimmies down the wall. It just shows you how agile they are and how capable they are of climbing down and up surfaces. So it runs along the floor wall junction and then disappears under that pallet, which you can see at the bottom right hand corner. Now, one of the first things you should be saying to the client is remove all of these waste items, because it's providing harbourage. The rats feel very comfortable and easy moving around this environment because there's plenty of scope to hide. I was there again last night trying to take some more videos, and there was definitely a heat source coming from some of the leaf litter, which would suggest that they are potentially nesting in amongst all this wind-blown debris that's under there. So again, cleaning and removing any sort of waste or residue round about the site will aid control. These were pictures that were sent to me by my colleague Sophie, and she did a marvellous job of detecting rats within a distribution centre or a warehouse. And you can see from the picture on the left hand side that there's infrared radiation being passed through the box, and she was wise enough to say, right, let's get this outside. Took it outside, opened the box, and lo and behold, there's rats nesting within the box, consuming the goods. Now, if you were going to be doing a visual search in a distribution centre, the amount of packaging that's in there, boxes, it can be quite time consuming when there's infestation present. You've got an idea of where to look. It's generally products that aren't packaged in pest proof type materials. So you'd go for things like breads, crisps, flour, pasta, dog food, anything like that. But with the aid of a thermal imaging camera, you can check areas far quicker, and especially when you've got bulk bags of things like rice being brought in. I've had nests of mice being delivered into supermarkets before in these large Hessian sacks. With the aid of a thermal imaging camera, it would have been far quicker to scan the actual pallet and try and ascertain whether they were present. So yeah, they're very useful for that. This is a bridge that I went to last night, so in terms of surveys for birds, it's very useful. This was taken obviously at night, so this would be classified as a high pressure site where they're using it for nesting and for roosting at night. And we can see very clearly the number of birds that are present. As I walked under the bridge and had a further scan, you can see that there's quite a significant number of birds present there. So I'm wandering under at the moment, and some of them are secreted in areas that are quite difficult to see, but you can see infrared radiation being emitted from the birds when they're in there roosting. So in terms of where this could be used, it'd be good for night shoots for your second man, your spotter. He could use a thermal imaging camera to try and find where birds are secreted. Also, if you're trying to do a job and you're thinking about the potential for displacement of the population and you want to have an idea of numbers that are there, you may want to persuade a client to do some trapping first before you before you go and install a net, because you may displace the bird population from this area to somewhere which is far more sensitive. There could be a hospital in close proximity or something like that, and they're going to start nesting under their air conditioning units, and there's the real chance for disease transmission. Also, if you've got geese that are feeding in fields, stripping back any crops. You may want to estimate the numbers of birds that are present there. Parakeets as well, if they're present, so in and around sort of London, you get them chewing through mesh covers and vent covers and things like that. So it would be interesting to use thermal imaging to try and ascertain where they're harbouring. Mice within buildings, I've come across this plenty of times in my career, where you are looking internally and externally for evidence of rodent infestation. And it's generally when you start to pick up things like polystyrene balls that have fallen out of the wall, insulation material that's been dragged out by rats and is lying at the floor wall edges, especially round about this corrugated corrugated sheeting type material here. You can see the top left hand image. There's quite a significant amount of heat escaping from the building, so what the pest control companies decided to do is mesh this area here to prevent rodents getting up and under, because there was a significant gap underneath the actual cladding where they were gaining access to. This was taken from a cheese factory, where they got into some of the wall panelling, and you can see where the mice have hollowed out chambers within the wall and created a network of burrow systems. If you've got wooden walls, I'm thinking like wooden wall panelling, I'm thinking chicken farms, you'll see differences in patternation within the actual wall itself. The temperature differences you'll be able to see, or should be able to see, through the wall. Other defects that you'll get is potential water ingress or mold growth. So this is from a lack of insulation above a ceiling, and when the shower is on, all the water is condensing on the plasterboard here and promoting mold growth. This has been cleaned with Steri 7, so quaternary ammonia compound, to try and kill any of the spores and reduce the amount of mold growth. However, because it's constantly in use, with it being a shower room and you've got this cold patch here, you're going to get this condensation and mold growth. So you'll end up with things like potentially soakids, plaster beetle, minute fungus beetles, fungus gnats, and if there's any leakage in the actual roof itself and it's dripping onto timbers, you'll end up with mold infiltration into wooden beams, which will make it susceptible to things like woodworm. So that's worth bearing in mind. It's a useful tool for that too. It could be that there's a proofing defect on the outside of the building at the fascias, which is allowing a cold flow of air in through the building. This doesn't have that, fortunately. This is just damp and cold due to lack of insulation. Fox surveys, so at night going out, having a look to see fox populations, like trying to maybe follow it back to where its den is. If you can visually see it through a thermal imaging camera, you've got more hope of being able to follow it back. Also looking underneath things like decking as well. So if people are hearing foxes in the back garden, you want to check to see whether or not they're living under the decking. They can be used for that also. Squirrels. So yeah, they're very destructive, as we know. They will chew in through soffits and through the fascia boards of buildings and create lots of noise at night when they're scrambling around. So we want to be able to detect where they're gaining access. Sometimes they're not as obvious as this particular hole in the fascia board. Sometimes they're a bit more difficult to see under dormer windows and things like that. They can run up the lead and then squeeze in through tiny gaps, or gaps that they have widened where the actual dormer meets the building, meets the main roof. They can squeeze in under that. You also got birds flying under there. I've had situations where I've been called to remove birds' nests or try and proof it up for birds. So it's useful for detecting the infrared radiation that's escaping from the building at that point. So it might aid in the actual quick detection of where the actual ingress points are. Also for drays, for anybody that does dray poking and management of grey squirrels, it'll help you determine which drays are actually active. You see the infrared radiation passing through the dray, and then you can get your pole, pull the dray down, and shoot the squirrel. So it will aid in time for treatments, because you're not wasting your time pulling down drays that don't have anything in it. So yeah, it's good for that too. I I got trapped in a bathroom with a squirrel. It had fallen down the wall cavity and then came out where the waste pipe for the toilet had passed through the wall. We had to actually widen it to get the squirrel out. Thermal imaging would have been useful in that particular circumstance to find out exactly what piece of wall paneling to take off. We stripped quite a bit back off the actual underneath the window ledge to get to it, and then when it did come out, it was doing the wheel of death round about the bathroom, knocking over hair products and all sorts, and in the end we simply had to open the window and it leapt out the window. Flat roofs have been called to leaks within roofs before, where it's been causing fungus gnat infestations within office blocks. So if you can use a thermal imaging camera to detect any leaks within this sort of bitumen type roof covering, once that starts to crack, it will draw water in by capillary action underneath the roof, and then any material underneath over time will become saturated, and you'll get fungal growth under there because it never really fully dries out, and with the sun beating down on it, it will heat up enough to cause mold growth. Also, leaking pipes under sinks. So I'm thinking in coffee shops and things where water's potentially pouring down the back of a coffee machine into a wall cavity. It may help to determine where that is, or if there's a leak down the side of a sink where water's penetrating into the wall and causing fly infestation, you may be able to pick it up using thermal imaging cameras as well. Wasps, bees, and hornets within a wall cavity, being able to detect where they are can be quite difficult sometimes. Thermal imaging cameras can help to pinpoint roughly whereabouts the nest is, because of the heat that's being generated by the insects within the nest. Obviously they want to keep it at a reasonable temperature. That will allow you to precisely apply insecticide, or cut it open to do live extractions if it's bees. If you don't live extract it and remove the comb, then you'll end up with honey pouring down the wall cavities and through the skirting boards of the person's house, and they'll get a bit upset at the fact that they've got honey pouring out their walls once you've destroyed the bees, if that's what needed to be done. So with bedbug treatments, when you've actually got heaters and the fans on, it might be worthwhile using the thermal imaging camera as well to detect cold spots within rooms, because naturally any bed bugs will gravitate towards these colder areas of the room that's being treated to evade being cooked to death. So that may actually help you to assess where to potentially apply some insecticide if it's not going to get up to temperature in these given areas. It could be that there's airflow passing through certain areas that would allow the bed bugs to escape any sort of heat. Also, where you've got trunking and the heat isn't able to penetrate into these areas, it will pick up cold spots within that as well. That's where you would apply things like potentially diatomaceous earth as a desiccant dust, so that when you walk through it, it'll kill them. Looking for non-target species, so things like bats, owls, Also potentially water voles or otters if you're doing treatments close to any sort of water courses. So before you go out and apply any rodenticide or anything like that, you could go out and do a night survey. Usually the giveaway is owl pellets around the site, but if you're able to capture some images or see where they're roosting, that would also be helpful. If you're going up into a loft, let's say for instance to do an insecticidal treatment for cluster flies or wasps, you want to be 100% sure that there's no bats present. So use of a thermal imaging camera may help to pick up the presence of them without you actually going into the loft and disrupting the population of bats that's present. So it's not an X-ray machine. It does have its limitations. So things like metallic or plastic surfaces will reflect infrared radiation back off it. This is me, I took that picture this morning and I'm looking directly at my cooker, and at the back of it's a stainless steel splashback. So the infrared radiation from me is bouncing back off that, and that's what's taking that image. So when you're going out to do sort of thermal imaging surveys, it's important to understand the properties of the material that you're trying to detect the infrared radiation through. So I've said before about RDCs. A lot of the pallets come in shrink wrapped into these distribution centres, so you may need to cut shrink wrap off the actual pallets before you start to inspect them. Otherwise the radiation will bounce back and you'll get false positives. You'll be saying to your client, oh yeah, there's definitely something in there, take it outside. They'll cut it open and there'll be nothing there, and they'll get a bit sick of taking pallets outside and cutting them open. So think about what you're using it, what sort of substrate you're shining the thermal imaging camera at. Yeah, it's not an X-ray machine, so it does have limitations. However, they are a very good tool for a biologist or a technician to have. Something like this HIC Micro V2, the mini one, can be carried around, and it's absolutely tiny, and you just plug and play. That's it there. That just plugs into your phone. You download the app and then plug it into the bottom of the phone where it charges, and that's where it gets its power from. So there's no battery required for this, which is useful because a lot of times people will forget to charge something up, whereas this can just plug and play straight into your phone, and you've got a thermal imaging camera at your disposal. So it's very good. This has been drop tested to a meter as well, and it's IP rated IP40. So in terms of moisture, it'll survive the rain if you're outside, depending on how heavy it is. I wouldn't fancy going out in a monsoon with it, but yeah, it's very good. It's got an extension cable as well, which you can use to inspect inside void areas. You can dangle it potentially under the floor and have a look round about using the cable that way as well. It can take stills and videos, and you can change the different palettes, the way the colour looks on the screen. So it's very good. Very lightweight, and it comes with a carry case to stop it being damaged. So it comes with something like that, and it's got your adapter. So this will fit an Android and an Apple phone, so you can use it on both types of devices. So it's very good. Yeah, and it fits into your kit bag or even into the side pocket of your trousers. So it's pretty reasonable to carry around. We have the other types of thermal imaging cameras as well. The HIC Micro Eco V. This is good because it takes a thermal image and also a still image as well, and it has a laser finder as well, so it points directly at what you're looking at or where the heat source has been generated from, so you know precisely where to focus your attention on. So they're very good. It's been dropped from 2 meters, this particular one. I didn't test this. I'd be, it's, I wouldn't want to, but, and it's IP54 rated as well. So in terms of water resistance, it's good. You've got 8 hours running time on the battery as well. And you can set it so that the power will go off off after 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you want. You can program it, and then the battery will automatically turn off when it's not in use, which saves energy and gives you more time on that camera to be able to use it. But 8 times quite a long time to be able to use it. Should you require any of our literature, or you want to see what the specifications are of the different cameras, we've got quite a few cameras that we stock and distribute. So it's just a case of contacting ourselves. Drop us a message, get in contact with your local sales rep, and we can pass that information on and costs to yourself. These are the sales literature that you know, if you would like copies of, just let us know, as said before. And thank you for your time. Any questions, anybody?
Thanks, John. I don't think we've got any questions in the messaging right now, but it's really good that, we think that thermal imaging is just for rodents, but actually it can be used for a various number of pests, and really good. I like the way that you've kind of shown on the bug beds as well, that they actually do disperse from the heat. So where do they go? And it's good to get that capture in firsthand, isn't it? When they before they disappear.
Yeah.
Um,
Even things
but
like tropical ants, like Pharaoh's ants that are spreading throughout a building, you want to
yeah,
ascertain where hot water pipes are, because they'll tend to navigate and follow those trails into different apartments or areas of a building. So ascertaining where these hot pipes go will help you to place your bait more carefully and get better control. Things like cockroaches as well, they tend to gather around about warm areas within kitchens. It could be that there's a pipe running behind a panel wall that you don't know about, and there could be cockroaches harbouring in there. So that would help you to where to drill and pump insecticidal dust into walls, or potentially get gel bait into these areas as well. So yeah, they are very useful tools.
yeah, no, brilliant. Actually, we've got a couple of questions. Do the cameras record?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they record, and you can basically send it as an email. You can put it into a presentation like I've done, and it will also take an image within an image, so you can get your ordinary photograph with the thermal image inside it as well. So that gives someone like a maintenance guy an idea of where you want a hatch cut. So you could be looking at a soffit or a wall cavity, and you can see where the actual infrared radiation is being passed through the wall. And if you're taking it with a not within a normal image, it gives the person the right idea about where to go to and cut those inspection hatches from the actual proper photograph. So it's very handy for that as well.
I think we've got, sorry, we've got another question here. Um, is a monthly plan involved? Do you need a SIM card, etc.?
No,
That's not the case, is it, John? It's just the camera and it's got the memory inside it, isn't it?
yeah, with the larger cameras, the handheld ones, there's a cable that you can then plug into your computer to download any of the images. So it's very good, very user friendly, very intuitive, and yeah, dead easy to use. It's one of the most simple ones that I've ever used. I've had the use of the FLIR camera before, and I don't think it's as good as these ones. Obviously, that was what 15 years ago I used that, I think, and technology does move on. They've probably caught up, but in terms of expense, these are a lot cheaper and a lot more user friendly. I think think they've come down in price quite a lot. When I started, they were about 7.5 grand. So yeah, they were very
Wow.
expensive. I used to actually have the fear of taking it out of the case in case I dropped it down a wall void or something like that. Yeah, imagine phoning the boss up. Oh, it's fallen down the wall cavity.
Yeah.
Guarantee period. It's the guarantee period is 3 years.
Yeah. I've got a couple more questions here actually, John. Is it fair to say that thermal imaging for identifying pest rodents and or pest birds cannot be identified below floorboarding behind plasterboards?
Behind plasterboards, yes, it can. If the nest or their body is in close contact with the actual plasterboard itself and under a floorboard as well, it depends on the proximity and the radiation that's passing through the actual substrate itself. So if it's pressed up against the plasterboard or wood, it will show a change in temperature.
Yeah. So someone's asked, out of all the ranges that we offer, which is your preferred one?
It's difficult. I like them all. They've all got their unique things, but I've been playing with the V2 at the moment, and
Yeah.
that's I like that because it's very lightweight, and an inspector, you can carry that around with you everywhere, and you'd never be without it. You can actually. I'm sad I took this out when I was out at the weekend with my missus as well. So, I'm like, any opportunity I can get to take a picture, I'll do it using either IR or my normal phone of pest issues. So,
Got a few more here. Will they detect wasp nest in the ground? But I guess you kind of already covered that question with the floorboards.
yeah, so they'll detect rodent burrows as well. They're
Hmm.
great for rabbit surveys too. So, rabbit warrens to see which holes are being frequented. Yeah, if there's enough heat that's being generated by those wasps in the ground, it will show up as a heat signature in the ground. Yeah.
Would you recommend the smaller one that slips into your phone, or is it worthwhile? What are the advantages of the larger units?
The larger units are very good. In terms of the crispness and sharpness of the pictures, they're a lot better. It takes a photo, an ordinary photograph plus the IR photograph at the same time, which means if you're compiling a professional report, you can put the two side by side and then have arrows and comparisons and highlight the areas that are requiring attention. So if it was me and I was going to be using it for you know on a regular basis, I would buy the bigger one. That's what I would do. Yeah. If I was going into a factory or something like that where I need to be crawling around on my hands and knees or going through let's say a roof void or something like that, I would take the smaller one that can go into my phone. So they've both got their pluses. So yeah, every one of them's brilliant to be honest. I wish
Yeah,
I had.
the quality is amazing, isn't it? And how you can clearly define what kind of pest it is as well. It's not just a blob or anything. You can
Yeah,
really picture, you can really figure out what it is that's actually causing the issues there, and that's really amazing.
yeah.
Um, Excellent. Any more questions before we close the Q&A? Just check if there's any more on this side. No? Excellent. Well, if that's oh, hang on, there's one more that's just come in. Can it detect a mouse nest in the middle of a pallet full of sesame bags?
No, no. If it's right in the middle of a pallet, the infrared radiation given off by that mouse would have to pass through all of those sesame seeds and all the way out to the external extremities of that pallet. So it it would have to be nesting towards the outer edges of the pallet for you to detect it. If it's right in the center of it, nah, there's no way.
Do animals leave a heat signature when they move away? That's a good one.
Yes, they do. if I was to put my hand on the table and take it away very quickly, the infrared radiation, I will have heated that substrate up with my hand, and I can then check with the camera, and I would still see the outline of my hand on it. It depends on the external temperatures, how long it's been sat in that given area or walked across that area. You may actually be able to get a heat signature from freshly deposited rat droppings as well. If you were to go up into a loft void and have a roof void and shine it, and if there was rat droppings around and some of them had just been deposited, then you may actually see them glowing up as well. So yes.
Yeah, that's kind of unavoidable, isn't it, really, though? I don't think you can avoid that extra heat, isn't it? That's come from when they've moved.
Yeah, but it will only stay there for so long, and then it will dissipate after a while. So it depends on the temperature of the external environment and the type of material that it's been sat on. So yeah.
So it may determine whether droppings are fresh or old, presumably.
Yeah, if they're glowing white, then yeah, they'll be fresh. Yeah, because of the amount of temperature that's retained within the fecal deposit that's been put down there. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Someone's asked, are we going up to PPC in Yorkshire? Yes, we are going to be there.
Yes.
We are.
Yep.
John is presenting there as well, and we'll be having a stand there. So yeah, make sure you come and see us at PPC Live in March. All these products, all these cameras that John's mentioned today, they are available on our website, so pelsis-pro.co.uk. So by all means, you can contact your account managers, but they're also available online to purchase as well. So um, we will see you soon. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.